Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. I'm tuning in from Madrid. Damien is tuning in. Well, I used to say deepest, darkest Poland, Damien, but I guess it must be spring.
Yeah, a couple of days ago it was like summer basically, but I even got sunburnt on my nose. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, we can see it.
yeah, a bit
I was
of
going to call you Rudolph.
yeah, I should have worn something, but well, I didn't. I wasn't prepared. It's the first day of like almost summer here, but right now it's a little, it's a little more winter-ish. But of course that's gonna change soon. And but yeah.
Damien, you need to be at a tennis event where actually they are often giving away free sun lotion or what sunblock or whatever.
Yeah. I saw it in Braunschweig last year, and I actually was like sort of afraid to ask if I could get it too, because I had a pass, and I think they were mostly giving it to spectators, and I didn't ask for it eventually. But I was just finding the only seats with some shadow, because that was during the second week of Wimbledon, and it was absolutely just unbearable on the center court. If you took one of the seats that was in front of the sun, it was just impossible to sit through, I don't know, even a set or something. But yeah, I didn't end up asking for it, but I saw that they were giving it out. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I must admit they were giving it out yesterday in Madrid. I'm sure they were giving it out today as well. I just didn't notice it. Although at the point of taking it, they did say, you can always buy some. And I said, I'll come back tomorrow. I've actually got some here with me, but I didn't have it in the bag at the time yesterday. And I wasn't on a show court because actually the show courts are sort of depending on what time of day you go there, but often you're pretty well covered, especially in the early rounds where you can almost sit where you want. I was on the outside courts yesterday watching some qualifiers, which of course is what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about sunscreen or weather in Poland at the end of April. We're here to talk about the qualifiers. I'm actually going to start with the women. I know that I've been probably covering it a bit more than you, but then hopefully you'll do a much bigger, deeper dive. I'm actually going to begin, though, with Bouchard, who actually is someone that we're all familiar with in terms of where she has been on the tour and how successful she has been. But, of course, we know the issues that she had with injuries. But I have to say, I saw her qualifier yesterday, and I was like, oh, my goodness. And I tell you what, okay, Damien, before I get into a deeper sort of dive about Bouchard and her matches yesterday and today, I actually want to say something to you, which is a generic point about qualifying. I think for me, it was a little easier to see the difference between the haves and the have-nots. If I was to look at just independently the number 50 in the world and the number 80 in the world, or the number 30 in the world and the number 60, or the number 60 and the number 100 in the world, it's if everyone was wearing white and you had no idea who each other was, and I said which one of those two is going to win tomorrow, irrespective of matchups, I don't think I'd have a clue. What I will say is that I could see, for example, Burridge yesterday thinking she's won today, but if she's playing anybody of the Bouchard level, or even, by the way, Sorribes Tormo, who lost yesterday to Bouchard. In fact, she actually pulled out. I think she was sick, although I didn't get an exact diagnosis. But I was surprised that she pulled out because she was hitting the ball pretty cleanly. And then, of course, Mandlik as well, who lost today to Bouchard as well. And I'm looking at those three girls, for example, and comparing them to Burridge and seeing the way that she's hitting the ball and just thinking, there's a gap there. And if one of them, if one of the aforementioned players I mentioned brings their A game, same with Siegemund as well. If any of those are bringing their A game and they're playing someone like Burridge, well, I can see the difference. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. There's definitely players in the qualifying who you're like, okay, they might break the top 100, sure. But if they do, it's like going to be, some bottom tier, let's say, I don't know, 80, 70-ish. And probably like it's hard to imagine them going ever going deeper. Definitely there are players like this. Burrage, she has so little clay experience as well, but in general, she's probably also one of these players, right? Who she will break the top 100 probably eventually, but like we don't really expect her to, I don't know, be seeded at slams ever or something like that. And sometimes these projections can be wrong. Off the top of my head, Cam Nori, if someone told you 3 years ago that he was going to be seeded at slams, you'd be laughing probably on the floor. And somehow he's there and totally belongs there and is probably going to stay there. So of course sometimes it can be wrong, especially with someone like Nori who has just such unique, such weird technique. But yeah, I can totally get that. There's definitely a lot of players I'm watching at like the challenger level who I know that they're not going to be stars of the game. They're still going to make their living on it. They're still going to play tennis for 15 or maybe even 20 years professionally, but they're not going to be stars of the game. They're not going to be the people that casual fans buy tickets for. And that's fair. Not everyone can be in the top 10.
Yeah, right. I think the thing with Cam Nori, by the way, which you highlighted, which is a really good point, is the technique, especially on the backhand. And you're probably watching him, and his technique more than probably what's coming off the racket and seeing how the ball is reacting and where it's going, because you're probably watching him in qualifying or lower down the ranks and just going, oh, well, it's good to see plucky Cam doing all right. And then a couple of years later, especially if you're a casual fan, you go, oh, he's in the semi-final of Wimbledon. Oh, he's won Indian Wells. Okay, listen. Let me start with Bouchard. She spent a lot of time off the tour through injury and stuff. But I saw her match. And I'm just going to actually share. It was actually a retirement in the end from Sorribes Tormo yesterday, and I didn't see her match against Mandlik today, which she also won in straight sets. But by the way, that's a pretty impressive pair of victories to have in qualifying, right?
Yeah, and I mean, anytime I think of Bouchard in Madrid, that 2017 run comes to mind, where she made the quarters. Also, already like having some issues before that, right? Because like she basically had like a couple of full seasons on the WTA tour, you could even say. And there were some legendary matches there because she played Sharapova, and this was right after there was that whole drama. Of course, Sharapova coming back from a doping ban. And Bouchard said that she believes that Sharapova shouldn't even be able to play. And then they meet each other in Madrid. And of course, there was just so much tension. And when she beat her, she felt that she after these words, she had to beat her, sort of. Then she just absolutely crushed Kerber. And it was a retirement, but it was one of the most shameful retirements I've ever seen. She basically went down 3-6, 0-5, and pulled the plug, for seemingly no reason. Yeah. And it was really one of the most shameful retirements I've seen. So I remember it very vividly to this day. Then Bouchard ended up winning just 4 games against Kuznetsova in the quarters, but just a legendary run because of these 2 matches, I think, and her quality there was insane. Of course, someone who will really enjoy these sort of quicker clay conditions, and yeah, when she's hitting her forehand like she was in the qualifying, I said before. Before we started recording that, of course, like compared to the men's qualifying that I saw, women's, it's probably just very, very small percent, but I actually watched a bit of Bouchard, and it would be phenomenal if she was able to get another run like that. Certainly, of course, someone who we will always remember for that 1-2 peak seasons. And sometimes she's still able to good to see that she's sometimes still able to somehow find at least a big chunk of that level. Of course, as you said, so many health issues, and even this year when she's been playing so far, it hasn't really been anything spectacular.
I think that she might build some. The performance yesterday, I'm telling you, was like, honestly, it was wow. I was like, if that was the 2 players playing a 3rd round, for example, or even a 4th round, maybe a major, for example, that wouldn't have been out of place. I really think the level was really high for the first of 2 qualifying matches. And when I saw that she was going to play Mandlik today, I was like, boy, Mandlik has had a few notable results in the last few months. I was like, wow, that's an unfortunate pair of matches that Bouchard has got to play. I do think that the clay court, of course, isn't such a handicap for her like it is like maybe one or two other North Americans. But nevertheless, I thought she was moving great. I was also impressed with the way she dealt with Sorribes Tormo's. I'm barely saying her name right. You barely think I even spoke a word of Spanish. Never mind. Supposedly fluently. Sorribes Tormo. Her ball, honestly, was really picking up some momentum off the and Bouchard on the backhand side was just eating it up for breakfast. And I was like, wow. And I know I was actually starting to think with Sorribes Tormo, she started to, I think the beginning, she got broken at the beginning of the second set and she took a medical timeout or a timeout on the side of the court. And I thought, okay, I wonder how far this is going to go because it's going to get to a point where you've probably got to finish the match because actually she was moving fine. She was hitting the ball fine. That's why I'm suggesting I saw that she got her blood pressure checked. It was very hot yesterday in Madrid, albeit she was fortunate enough to be playing on one of the show courts where it wasn't beating down with quite as much sunshine as the outer courts. I spoke to Laura Siegemund, by the way, who won her match both yesterday and today, and asked her about the heat in Madrid, and she said, no big deal. So anyway, back to Bouchard. I think her level was very, very high yesterday. I didn't see her match today, but if she's beating Mandlik 3-2, going into the first round, it comes back to the adage, or at least the theory I have is, if I don't know who's playing, it's a qualifier or wild card. I think it's probably better to play a wild card because, maybe they're on their way out or they're just sort of there for the show, or maybe they're a home favorite, or perhaps there's other factors involved. But Bouchard, I think she could go beyond that first round.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just checked out her draw. She's playing Yastremska, another qualifier. Of course, another qualifier with some pretty insane potential that she used to show. Perhaps not anymore. And I could totally see her as being the favorite in that. And especially as the seed that they can face there is Martina Trevisan. Great on clay, sure, but still a fairly limited player, I would say. Not someone we're really thinking of as a potential contender to win the title. So the opportunity is there for this run, and quarterfinal is now going to be tougher than in 2017 because now you need 4 rounds. But still, if she's able to play like she did in the qualifying, she can certainly win a few matches here, and should be among the qualifiers that everyone is going to be following in this draw.
The only qualifier I can remember going on to win a 1,000 or higher tournament in the last few years is Emma Raducanu. I can't think of another one in recent memory. I mean, I can go back as far as the mid-'80s and know that...
I think she was the first slam winner as a qualifier, right? Not sure about ATP thousands. Recently, I don't think so.
I'm not putting Bouchard up there. I'm just getting a bit more of... Do you think that can actually aid a player, though, a little bit?
I mean, in some cases, definitely. Perhaps not really in trying to win the event, right? But because maybe then these 3-2 matches can be a bit of a drag. But in terms of just being better, having more match play on this court against your first opponents, yeah, for sure. I thought so. There's I'm trying to look for it, and I think Krajinovic was a qualifier in Paris 2017. There was also there looks like there were basically a few qualifiers that made in 2001 in Hamburg, Albert Portas won that as a qualifier. Did he? No, this article is written in a very weird way, and I would have to check that. But definitely, definitely there's been a few qualifiers who made the finals of an ATP 1000 event, like Krajinovic, like Jerzy also in Paris 2012. I'm not sure if anyone has ever won one, though.
By the way, you just saying ATP there, and I was waiting to see what you're going to say next. I made a small, tiny error, but I always fear that I'll get picked up on it. I was talking to Rybakina today, and I said, a lot is made about Madrid being a bit of an outlier in terms of form regarding the French Open, because a lot of people, of course, will talk about Monte Carlo and Rome. And then I went, I mean, really Rome, because of course I'm interviewing a WTA player, and I've said Monte Carlo. But Anyway, I divulge. I divulge, or I go off at a tangent. Whatever it is, I'm sure someone will pick up.
By the
Go
way,
on.
Portas really did win Hamburg 2001 as a qualifier. Of course, Hamburg now is a 500, but back then was
Back then it
a
was
bigger
1,000.
event.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2001, Albert Portas beat Ferrero in the final, actually. So,
by the way,
very cute.
I just noticed something on the Madrid Open website.
Mhm.
They have spelt the word results in a very entertaining or interesting manner. I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but hopefully you can. Resutls.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not
it sort
yet.
of looks Norwegian to me, which is kind of ironic because, of course, we've got a nice little Norwegian here next to that.
We
image.
can't see it yet, I think.
Oh, you
That's
can't?
what I
Okay, let
wanted
me
to
see if
say.
I
Yeah.
can. Is it working now?
No, I can
Oh.
only see you and myself.
Let me. Okay. I know what I've not done. I need to do this. So we do this, and then you can see it. I think so. That's
Yep.
the website. We can see Rublev there at the top. And then if I do this, we see our lovely little friend Casper there, right next to the word resultats.
Results.
Yeah, resultas.
Mm.
Resultas. As I say,
Results.
that may be
Okay.
Norwegian, but I suspect it's not. But I was just looking for the qualifying draw, which I'm going to bring up right now. Let's switch just back over to the WTA before we do switch to ATP. We've got some of these results here. Any others that stand out? I mean, I mentioned Jamie Burrage. I saw her yesterday. She did win in straight sets, Jodie Burrage. But I thought to myself that she might struggle against Irani, although she did win the first set. But she did ultimately go down. And once she went down a very, very early break, I think it was in the third set, there was no looking back. And Irani saw that through. Siegemund, I'll have a quick word on her. I saw her play yesterday, winning 6-3, 6-2. She went down an early break. I think she was down 4-2 in the match against Rakimova, who she's never played before, or at least in singles anyway. I know she's played in doubles. The other thing with Siegemund that she mentioned to me yesterday is she thought this year would all be about the doubles. Maybe she was already thinking at her in her mid-30s that perhaps big runs may be a little bit more likely or a lot more likely in the doubles than the singles, but she's made the first round proper. At least that's how we say it in football terms. We used to always say third round proper in the FA Cup, which is where the sort of qualifiers, if you like, get to. But I'm going off at a tangent onto another sport. Bouchard, we've already touched on. Are there any other names here on my screen before we switch over the ATP that sort of stand out to you that you'd like to add a word on?
I mean,
Vondrousova. How can I ignore that one?
Yeah, I would say Vondrousova for sure. Like she's playing Basels Ribera in the opening round, which seems like just an almost auto win for her. Like that's just how good she is, right? And especially on clay. Of course, a former Roland Garros finalist. Maybe hasn't really done well in Madrid. She played it like once or twice though. She had runs in Rome for sure, and yeah, I can simply imagine her going very deep here. Of course, she is
deep,
this
very
low in
deep.
the rank.
Damien, that's big words. Very deep.
I mean, yeah, she is so low in the rankings that because of the fact that last year she didn't play between let me check that, April and October. So basically, she still doesn't have these 6 months on her ranking. She's still top 80, but this year she basically hasn't really had a bad loss. You could say Indian was fourth round, Miami fourth round. Won 2 matches in Billie Jean King Cup since, and was also qualified. Of course, losing a set to Townsend, but winning all her other 4 very easily. And yeah, with the sort of draw she has, Linette as her closest seat, then Haddad Maya, Andreeva or Fernandez. Like frankly, she's probably the favorite to make the 4th round here. And of course, then she would probably play Sabalenka. So that that could be where her run would end.
Yeah.
But like
But
she's out of all these players here, the 6 that we have in the Haddad Maya Linette section, I would say she's the favorite to reach the 4th round.
Yeah, no, to be honest with you, now you mentioned the draw, and that shows you how draw dependent it is. And a slightly wider point is, I think when you realize when someone's got a good draw, it's when you're doing the predictions, etc., and you're going through them, and you're like, oh, I've got Jessica Pegula in my Madrid semi-final, but I hadn't really thought of her as being a contender. I had her in a semi-final recently where I hadn't considered her as a big contender, and suddenly she was in the semi-finals. I think it was Indian Wells or Miami, one of those two. I had her in the semi-finals, and I think it's when you realize just how significant draws are. Also, sometimes I'm doing these draw predictions, And when they go through one, I'm thinking, can they do it again? If you've got Krejcikova, for example, against Sabalenka in the fourth round, which seems to be coming up all the time in the last few months. And let's just say you predict Krejcikova to go through. You think, oh, and then she's got someone massive in the quarterfinal. You're going, can I go for Krejcikova again? And you sort of do. And then she's going, and you just eventually just go, stop, John, stop. And it just goes to show how draws can be massive. And when I mentioned to you just there, wow, you got Vondrousova going deep. I wasn't aware when you mentioned those potential, Linette being her, and I'm not sure Linette will get that far, being her sort of first seed.
Linette will get far enough to play her, right? Because she's already in the second round. But
I see. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. But so I think draws are huge, and I think it certainly benefit her. Siegemund, I'll just have a quick final word on her before we switch over to the ATP. Yeah, she was down a break in the first set it was, and I thought, okay, that could be interesting. She's obviously had some good form on clay. She got the French Open quarterfinal. I spoke to her yesterday as well and showed her an image of a time violation she got, and she actually got quite demonstrative to say, look, I was in the middle of my service action whilst that happened. But yeah, so she got to the quarterfinals. But I do think that she's someone that is concentrating a bit more on the doubles from now on, really, and any sort of anything beyond the first round or further for her is a positive. But yeah, but just one thing on Vondrousova I just want to say is she did. So she had a largely non-existent 2022. I remember, I think it was Matt from the Tennis Podcast had her getting to the quarterfinals of the Australian Open in his predictions, and I just remember David Law's response of Vondrousova in your quarterfinal, and that stuck in my head and has still stuck in my head to this day, because it was like so sort of from nowhere. And when I say from nowhere, we know the French Open from, I think, 5 years ago. We know that. But it was just like there'd been nothing since. And there hasn't really been a lot in the last couple of years, suggest. But this year, I thought in Australia, I did have her on my, she's going to go a bit further than normal.
Yeah, she actually had a pretty disappointing exit to Fruhvirtova at the Australian Open, I would say. But just glancing at her records, in 2020 she was in the semifinals at Rome, of course the Olympic final, right? There's always been something at least, and yeah, obviously her recent issues were mostly injury related as well. So yeah, clearly this year she has been at least a top 50 player, and I'm assuming that on clay it's much higher than that as well. So would not be shocked at all with the forefront here from her, and probably she's the favorite out of these players. Of course, Haddad Maia, Linette, it's not the toughest spot for her. So I can totally get that. Even though that Roland Garros, of course, she hasn't really repeated that. Of course, it was also a pretty weak run from what I remember. Like, who did she? I think it was Konta in the semis, right? Other than Konta, there wasn't maybe anything really that special. And of course, she was completely just destroyed in the final, overwhelmed by the nerves. But I don't think it's just that accidental, right? And surprised that the guy was so shocked by the peak.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. No, I mean, I got it because it's hardcore. It was Australia. It was 2 years with her not really doing a great deal. I'm pretty sure it could have been 2020, but I think it was 2021.
Because even after right after that Roland Garros 2019, she was out for 6 months, right? So she basically never really took any momentum from that run either, because she was basically out injured for half a year right after that, like a couple of events after that.
So. I do think it was left field. I mean, having her in a quarterfinals at a hard court major, having, she had that run in the French Open. But this year, I remember tipping her to get to a particular round, and I don't think she quite made it. But I remember thinking maybe I'd seen some results in the winter, a European winter at least, that maybe suggest maybe even a pre-tournament in Australia. I thought, okay. And yeah, from the selection you just mentioned, I think she has got a very good chance of going deep in this tournament. Hi, Jay. Nice to have you on board. We're going to switch over to the ATP now. So I'm glad that we've got a comment here from Jane about Artur Fils. maybe let's have a word on him then to begin with.
Did I misunderstand something? Sorry. What was your last sentence?
Arthur Fils, I think I'm saying it correctly.
Arthur Fils, he lost in to Arnaldi today.
To Arnaldi, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be like one of the most dangerous qualifiers when he makes it, frankly. When he played Benani, the 16-year-old from Marrakesh in the opening round, he looked just impeccable. Of course, it was Benani who's like, perhaps not really ready for this level yet, albeit very talented. And I think that the outside courts in general, they don't really behave as hard court like as the as the main ones. They're still faster. Of course, it's still like 600-meter altitude, but I think that was really tough for him to handle in against Arnaldi today. And of course, the Italian's just such a good defender. Was also getting a lot out of his first serve, perhaps also boosted by the altitude. So I am bummed about this because like if we get Arnaldi now, well, actually, where did Arnaldi land in the draw? I can check that. I mean. Arnaldi in the draw landed in which section? Sorry, he's playing Paire in the opening round and could play Root in the second. So get Fils in there, and I think he has a very solid chance at upsetting Root. Why? They would play on like a show court, right? And it would be probably again the conditions that favor him a little bit more. And I think he would be the favorite over Paire. I think Arnaldi is as well, of course. But give me Arnaldi against Root. I'm not sure he's going to do that well. He just doesn't really have that sort of a crazy ceiling, right? So in that sense, I am a little bummed about this as well, like Jane also is. Arnaldi played Evans in Barcelona. It wasn't really that great of a match. Like he just hasn't really displayed, and it also makes sense with his game. I guess he's also one of these guys whom you mentioned. Maybe not quite as not quite as much of an example of what you said earlier about like seeing that a player is probably not going to be a star, like I don't know, Burrage, for example. But still, he doesn't have the ceiling of Fils, right? And in that sense, I am kind of bummed about this, yes, because I was hoping for exactly this, like Fils getting in the second round, getting a huge, a very high seed, a very tough opponent, and I think in such a match, he would have actually had a great chance at an upset. Arnaldi against Ruud, I don't really buy it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The only thing I would say with Ruud is I think the two extremes we've seen from him in the last 12 months, some people are suggesting that with Ruud, he's reverting to the norm. I actually think that he's actually underperforming right now, and that at some point in the next couple of months or the next 6 weeks between now and the French Open, or including the French Open, I do think we're going to see a really good, probably deep run from him. I'm not saying it'll be in Madrid, but I think either Rome or in Paris, maybe we will see him in a quarter or semi-final. I don't think this clay form. I know he won in Estoril, and I thought that was going to mean something he's going to kick on. But anyway, I've gone away. Casper Ruud hasn't got to worry about qualifiers these days. Arthur Fils certainly does have to, and in particular right now because he's gone out to Arnaldi. Listen, I do want to get into, first of all, though, or in a bigger way, the tie of the round. Hopefully, I'm going to bring it up on the screen, which is right here at the top, which had to be Struff against Karatsev. It was one that I had circled anyway. In fact, I did actually ask for an interview with the winner. Sadly, that didn't materialize. But whatever. This was the one, irrespective of Karatsev's form since, I was going to say since Australia, but that's not fair. Since winning the, was it 250 in Serbia when he beat Djokovic in the final? I mean, there was that 5 insane months from Karatsev where he was winning titles. He was beating Andre Rublev, I believe, in an ATP, was it 500?
He won Dubai, yeah.
Yeah. And he won, of course, he got to the semi-final in Australia. And by the way, that run, the semi-final and the final, I actually think he pushed Djokovic more than Medvedev in the final that year. But I'm going off at a tangent. And then his clay court form was pretty decent and culminating in beating Djokovic in 3 sets. I think, was it a third set tiebreaker? He beat Djokovic in Belgrade. It was an insane match anyway. That happened, I think, the day before Nadal beat Tsitsipas in Barcelona. It was a couple of awesome days of tennis. And since that day, which would have been 2 years ago, pretty much to the day, what has happened to Karatsev since then, and what happened today against Jan-Lennard Struff on the Karatsev side of the net, at least?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the roots, not really like that you don't think that he just went back to the mean. Karatsev definitely did. After all, he's had so many he's had so many years on the Challenger Tour, just often not even threatening to win titles. And even if he hits the ball, so huge, even if he's just insane in all these half volleying on the baseline, the calves that he has, of course, the legendary calves, giving him the right sort of balance to hit a lot of shots as well. I think they're actually very important in making him the player he is, but he was always very mercurial, I would say. And we're just seeing that right now. We're just saying that right now. He had after that Banja Luka, it was Belgrade, of course, back then. After the Belgrade thing, he also won Sydney, right, against Murray in the final, January 2022.
Yeah, January 2022.
Yeah, and now I'm not even sure if he'd be winning challengers. In fact, he played Sanremo a couple of weeks back and lost to Kopejans in the opening round. Decently tough opener, but still, something that you would expect from a player, who beats Djokovic in Belgrade to clean up. I'm not really sure he'd be winning challenger titles right now, but maybe he's not gonna have to if he produces some sort of a run here. Definitely played one of his best matches that I've seen in quite a while in the final qualifying round against Struff, even taking into consideration that the fact that the German was just on completely the other end and just absolutely awful. So I don't know. Let's see what Karatsev does with this, because he was hitting some insane shots. Just taking the ball so early and landing on the line. Is that maintainable? Who knows, right? He's playing Jera in the opener, so the opportunity is there, I guess. But if he wins, he can play Botic van de Zandschulp, who just beat him in Munich, losing just 2 games. Still, I'm not sure if Van de Zandschulp will be that quick to recover, right? After what happened in the Munich final, I think it could really haunt him for a while.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity there for Karatsev, but these days, I guess you can't really know much about what sort of quality he's going to bring in. I think it wasn't really 5 months either. I think it was all right, just right after the pandemic. So from about August, he was just a top 20 player, and somehow got to a level that you never really thought he had, which was just insane. We're probably not gonna see him there, but no one doubts that on an individual day, on just one particular match, he can still produce some insane tennis. So I guess I'm excited to see if he's able to do something in the main draw. Definitely not the toughest draw he could have gotten with Jere, but at the same time, someone really solid. You don't really know what's gonna happen. But yeah, Struff losing was a bit of a surprise for sure. He was 12-0 in qualifying this year. Made it into the Australian Open, made it into Indian Wells, Miami, the Phoenix Challenger, and Monte Carlo. And now he lost in Madrid finally. And I think he's also in the qualifying for either Aix-en-Provence or Cagliari next week, and then also for Rome. So even though he got some ranking out of the Monte Carlo run, he still is actually he still had to use his previous ranking to get into these events. So he's probably still going to play qualifying at least once, at least in Rome.
Karatsev, and I want you to elaborate as well on Struff in a second, but regarding Karatsev, I remember that win he had just before the Australian Open against Andy Murray, thinking, oh, okay, you're right. And then I forget who he lost to in the first round, but
Manarino?
Okay,
I think
Manarino.
making like a billion errors. I don't think that was the first
Exactly.
round. I don't think
That
that
was what
was
I
the
was going to
first
say.
round though.
I think he
Um,
reached three. It might have been three figures against Manarino of unforced errors.
yeah. I don't think it was the first round though, but
Or was it
from the
second round?
maybe even third, but from the very first match there, yeah, he was just making
Yeah.
countless
I
unforced
think maybe he
errors.
won a match in 5 sets in the first round and committed
Yeah.
loads of errors.
Jaume
There,
Munar maybe or someone like that. And
yeah,
I
there was
think then
something
he,
about that run that was almost as
yeah.
memorable, but for a very different reason to his run a year before.
Yeah, and then never won a match until like, I don't know, July or something like this. Of course, he won like two of them or three of them in that period, in that time frame, but still, it was nothing really remotely even that that would not nothing remotely close to the sort of quality that we know he can have, but that he only showed for 8 months or something like that.
Damien, before I forget, this is a perfect segue because there
Hmm.
was a guy I spoke to today and he said, remember me to Damien. And although I think he said Damien in the way he pronounced your name, but then how would you say it in Polish, by the way?
Yeah, we say Damian.
Oh, so there we go. I
But
shouldn't mock him. He was probably
no,
closer than
Damien is absolutely fine though.
yeah,
Like if you've never learned English as a as a second language, but when you have English classes, your teacher usually is gonna like anglicize your name in some
yeah.
way. So like if your name in Polish is, I don't know, Krzysztof, then he's gonna probably call you Christopher or something like that. So they've always been calling me Damien. So I'm fine with both. But who was it?
Anyway,
What are you
yeah,
talking about?
well. I'll get to it. Was in a second, and even then, I won't completely clarify things. But it's perfect timing because we're talking about unforced errors off the racket of Karatsev. This is a guy. He works or has done stuff for Punto de Break, a Spanish guy. But I
Mhm.
think he's either lived in the UK for a while because the way he speaks, he's a Spanish guy. He goes, "All right, mate, how you doing?" And I'll think, "Are you from London or are you from Madrid?" I'm not quite sure. And he's done stuff for Punto de Break, but right now he's counting unforced errors and forced errors, which is also a topic you and I have spoken about on many occasions. And I think his name is Javier, but I could be wrong.
I have no clue who that is. If his name is Javier.
He said he knows you. Listen, Damien, I'll go back because I can get him. I've even got him in my WhatsApps in my phone, but it was some dude and he called me sort of on the. He came across and he said John Silk. So first of all, I'm a bit like what? And yeah, and then he starts talking to me and he says, "Make sure you remember me to Damien." And or Damien and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And after he left, I was thinking, I forgot what your first name is. Although I do,
um,
I've had a dozen WhatsApps from him
a
and that.
friend of mine is in Madrid, and his name is Carlos, but I don't know
Oh well, that could be him then. I can
if
have.
that's him. I actually didn't know if that's him. Then I actually didn't know he was counting winners and forced errors, but
I
he
think
would
so.
actually know me. Like okay, and it would make sense because I think Carlos lived in Slovenia for a while, and like just lived abroad for some time. So it would make sense that he would speak in a different manner than
Well,
maybe
but it was more of a British way than anything else. But
mhm,
let me just see
okay.
because
But
yeah, it is Carlos. It is Carlos.
Carlos,
I'm just going through
okay.
my old WhatsApps here, and yeah, it's
Damon is
Carlos.
so famous now that he can't even remember his fan interactions, says Ghosty. But that's not a fan. Like he, he's also like a journalist in quotes. So we know each other, but we've never spoken to each other. Like just from Twitter and etc. But
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
yeah,
anyway,
this guy, I know who you're talking about. I knew he was in Madrid, but I didn't know he was doing the counting and
yeah, I'm
etc.
pretty sure. By the way, it was such a sort of 90-second random encounter in that. First of all, it's like someone says John Silk as well. It's kind of a bit. If someone says, "Hey, John," I had the most random encounter I ever had of this nature was about 5 years ago. It was in Peru, and a random guy just said, "Hey, John," and I turned around. I was like, "Hey, Francisco." And it was a guy I was teaching English to 10 years ago, so 5 years before that moment, in the south of Spain. And I was like, okay. But it was kind of surreal as well because we didn't really know each other very well. So then you go through the next 120 seconds, which you would normally do in a supermarket, by the way, when you bump into someone you sort of know or you haven't seen for a long while. You sort of do, hey, how are you? Not bad. Yeah, you? Yeah, good. Yeah, good. And you? Oh, yeah, you're good. All right, we'll see you around. And that's what you would normally do in the supermarket. And those are the conversations you desperately want to avoid where you possibly can. In fact, I've actually spent time in a supermarket where I'm actually trying to avoid these people that I haven't seen for a few years for those short talks. But this was a situation in Peru, and I'm like, oh, wow. Anyway, back to Carlos. It was 120 seconds. I think what I understood was that he's certainly not doing stuff for Punto de Break because he told me that. And he said, I'm doing something now official. I'm pretty sure it was counting forced and unforced errors because I said, these are the people that some of us are coming for. In fact, I remember you, Damien, on a podcast we did about 6 months ago saying, I think these guys are smoking crack. It was during a semi-final between Taylor Fritz and Djokovic, I think, from last year.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like in the middle of the opening set, and at some point, suddenly on the screen, you learn that Fritz already has hit 20 unforced errors, and you're watching that match, and you're like, the quality is pretty good. So if Carlos makes some errors in that, errors in counting the errors, then I'm gonna go for him. I'm gonna go at him. I'm gonna just burn him to the ground, and definitely.
Definitely, yeah, cool. Okay, listen, let's get back to what everyone's tuning in for. They're not interested in our random interactions with Carlos, or no, maybe they are. We'll do a separate show on that. Maybe that'll be for members only. I did a members only little not full on. I did a 2 or 3 minute interview that I put up on the members only thing. So make sure you become a member so you
with
can get
Carlos?
more stuff of that. No, it wasn't with Carlos. No, it was with someone a bit less known, Coco Goff.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. Let's get back to the qualifiers and what else happened today. Oh no, I want to get one more thing from you on Jan-Lennard Struff, which is something you said beforehand, which you attributed to his performance today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to throw out accusations or anything, but
sometimes let's put it looser. Let's just say, listen, did he perhaps think when he's 6-4, 4-1 down or whatever, is he thinking, well, probably I'll still get in anyway?
I mean, yeah. I think at the time when the qualifying finished, it was like 1 or 2 lucky losers. So he was either had a 50% chance or a 66% chance to make it. Still pretty high. I'm not saying, I don't like throwing out accusations like this because, we never really can be sure, but definitely there were moments when he didn't seem like totally engaged in this match. Someone actually in a tweet of mine, under a tweet of mine, someone commented then that Struff played like he had some 10-pound, how do you call these, like 10 pounds of things at his ankles.
Oh yeah,
weights. Yes, the simplest way possible. Yeah, 10 pound weights at his ankles. So that's a pretty good description, I think. So I don't know if it was related to this. Maybe as you said, maybe there just comes a moment in a match when you're like, okay, I'm probably not winning this, so maybe I'll just save energy. Probably I will get in anyway. And indeed, he got in. And he is going to play whom? I already forgot. I checked that. Sonego in the opening round. So, yeah, not unwinnable. And the winner of that plays Shelton as well in the second round. So,
I want to do a little bit before we finish on the main draw, but not in a grand scale, but just in terms of the qualifiers on the main draw. So I will get to that in a short period of time. But by the way, feel free to mention definitely who you think they're playing. I love what you were saying earlier about Vondrousova's draw, for example, as a whole. But I do want to get your thoughts anyway on certainly the qualifiers and the qualifiers that you think will go furthest. But I want you to wait a bit before you answer that.
Okay.
Someone, by the way, I certainly want to mention regarding qualifiers is Cecchinato, who is through. He had a really good run in Estoril recently. I think that was skewed a bit by not a strange match, but certainly a strange result against David Fokina. In that I just didn't see him beating David Fokina, and somehow he did. But anyway, just some thoughts on Cecchinato.
Yeah, I mean, Cecchinato, I think he's just doing 2022 all over again, because that was the year when he was winless until May. And then when he suddenly woke up, he actually finished in the top 100. And yeah, he's just doing that again, I think. In the first few months of the year, he actually won some matches this time. But as you said, he had a good run in Estoril and now made it through the qualifying in Madrid, which was actually a pretty solid run. You know, Skatov, Zapieri, they've both won challenger titles very recently. Well, in Zapieri's case, very recently, in Skatov's case, like half a year ago, but of course, a great clay player as well. So for now, of course, we still have pretty small sample size on that because it's just Madrid qualies and Estoril semi, as you said. But for now, it kind of looks like his 2022 season again, where he just really struggled to get himself going. But once he did, he was again a top 100 player. And well, definitely played like that in the past couple of events.
Okay, cool. Van Ash, by the way, went out early in the qualifiers. I mean, there's only two options in the qualifiers where you're going to go out. Is that notable?
Depends. My expectations for him at the ATP level aren't high at all. Like really are actually pretty low. I think he might do a Chongqing Tseng or something like that, which, you know, last year Tseng barely won matches at the ATP level. I think he'd bounce back quicker than Tseng. But still, I just think for now at 18, he's probably not going to have a good time on the ATP tour with just the sort of underpowered manner of of his game. And the fact that he played here against Marigeni Alves, definitely quite an upset. I think it's much smaller than people think, though, mostly because, well, this is quicker clay. Marigeni Alves likes these conditions, and even if it's an opponent that, you know, plays challengers, so theoretically should be good for Van Asch, I think in these conditions it's very explainable. And yeah, I'm just generally not that high on Van Asch doing well on the ATP tour right now yet, at least. So to me, it wasn't really anything.
Bad day for Germans in Altmaier.
Yeah. Rodionov, another great, like fast clay, altitude clay, like small altitude. Of course, it's not Mexico. It's not, 2,000 meters, but still, Rodionov, I think, has two challenger titles on clay, and both were also at slight altitude. Mauthausen in Austria and Shymkent in Kazakhstan. So again, one of the better, I would say, players for such conditions. And yeah, definitely a good win over Altmaier, regardless. So. Why are you closing in on Attila Balázs?
A shout out to Balázs, only because he has a surname like 50% of my Hungarians' first names, albeit I think there may be a C in their first names, but that's the only reason.
No, actually, like I think Balázs Tarocsi, the highest ranked Hungarian ever, had the very same spelling in his name.
Okay, all right. So C's and Z's, not confused. So yeah, that's the only reason. That's the only reason.
Okay.
Have you got anything to add on Balázs, by the way? He went out pretty badly to Altmaier, who then obviously went out to Rodionov.
Come again, sorry?
Anything to tell me about Balázs? Because I have to confess, I'm not familiar.
Balázs has a fascinating story, actually. There was he had so many injuries throughout his career, and actually even retired to coach at some point.
Okay.
And then he came back and made the top 100, was a finalist in Umag 2019. He lost to Lajovic. This was actually before Banja Luka. This was the only ATP Tour title for Lajovic. So Balázs actually has a pretty fascinating story, but right now he has been injured forever and only is using his protected rankings to do this, basically. He's barely winning games. And I think the protected ranking is due to run out of it very soon. So probably not gonna watch Attila Balázs for much longer, frankly. He's doing like the Dudisela retirement way, I think, where you just play the events that you can get, like the big events that you can get to with your PR, and just barely win games in them. So I think at the French last year he played Cilic and won like 2 games, for example, and he's just doing that a lot. I think he played Barcelona as well. I don't know. He lost to Zapata Miralles, maybe winning 4 games or something like that. So he's basically just touring the world and getting some money right now.
Oh, nice to tour the world, get some money rather than tour it and spend. But anyway, Mr. Balázs, you are welcome on this show anytime, any place. Not that we'll dispense with any of the people we've got already, of course, but you'll be a welcome addition. I am so glad that we've got Benoit Paire on my screen right now, because not only is he a notable qualifier for various reasons, but look at the manner in which he qualified, bearing in mind it was 3 sets, losing the first set on both occasions 6-3. I think you couldn't do this show without giving a shout out to our favorite Frenchman in so many ways.
Yeah, massive choke from Passaro as well. He was serving for the match twice. He had a match point on serve at 6-5 in the second. Yeah, so definitely a crazy way to qualify. Also, I saw some videos from I think Carlos was one of the guys who posted it on Twitter. When the crowd was just reacting to
already.
Yeah,
I was thinking Alcaraz. I was thinking, really?
Yeah, our common friend Carlos was one of the people who posted it, and the reaction of the crowd after Paire qualified, and apparently they love him in Madrid. Maybe they just love him anywhere. I don't know.
Yeah. But no, I'm pleased for Benoit Paire anyway to prevail there. By the way, make sure you hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. But yeah, I wasn't aware of the scoring in terms of that match against Passaro. But yeah, that does sound like, well, I guess you'd have to be there at the match, or certainly watch it on TV to see how that panned out, whether it was a Benoit Paire incredible recovery or Passaro choke, if you like, or often is the case, it's a mixture of the two. Ghosty, by the way, thanks for having you on board. I know Ghosty is one of our loyal members. I know he enjoyed the interview I did with, or I say I did, that's not true, a press day that we had with Coco Gauff, which I posted for members only. I do apologize for the lighting. I did everything I possibly could to make the lighting better, except for one thing. I could have done one more thing, which was to ask said player to move. I could have just said, hey, the lighting sucks here. Do you mind just shifting like 180 degrees or whatever? That's the only thing I didn't do. I did everything else to try and make sure it was good, and hopefully it still was okay. It certainly sounded, I think, all right, and that's, I guess, the most important thing. But listen, tell you what sounds pretty good if you're Benoit Paire. You are into the first round proper. I'll get to that in a second. Just before we round off, Cerundolo, brother of a certain other Cerundolo, if I'm right, is out. They lost to Shevchenko today. Shevchenko has progressed. Any thoughts on this little group of players I've got up here, Damien?
Oh no, I guess out of these, Shevchenko is definitely the one you, especially compared to Cerundolo, could just utilize the conditions a bit better. Frankly, I've been a big fan of his since I first saw him play, which was actually live, not on stream, which usually it's always the other way around, right? But yeah, I've been a big believer. Coached by Ginter Bresnik, the legendary Austrian coach, basically treats him like the second dad of his, and broke the top 100 just a couple of weeks ago. Just very disappointed I was with the showing he had in Barcelona, where he just won one game, I think, against Alex de Minaur. After one good win in the opening round, then he won one game against de Minaur. So I'm also kind of not sure, like, if you put him against a top player right now, whether actually he's going to be able to do anything. But still, good that he was able to bounce back. And as you can see, I mean, he basically only won tie breaks on the way here.
I think the best example of a player I saw live first before ever seeing them on TV was Ivo Karlovic, who you and I spoke about in my infamous or famous kitchen a few months ago after one of our many kitchen conversations about tennis. And that's I think that's the player that springs to mind that I saw live, because I saw him beat Leighton Hewitt in the first round in 2003, which did not know that particular day was going to go on to become the Roger Federer Grand Slam breakthrough tournament, at least in terms of winning it. I guess you could argue 2001 was a breakthrough tournament for Roger as well, beating little-known Pete Sampras. Yeah, that's the player that springs to mind when it's sort of the player you saw in the flesh first, rather than than on TV. Someone I saw, by the way, and I'm just having a 30-second divulge before I get anything else, but it's something I thought about the other day. It's the first time I've ever seen Carlos Alcaraz play live. I saw him play Davidovich Fokina, and then also in the final as well. And I thought, okay, yeah, he's got a pretty good future ahead of him. He's got a pretty good present ahead of him as well. But we'll get to that on a later show. Listen, Danny Rincon lost out to Grenier today. Artur Fils, we've already touched on. Sadly for him, going out in 3 sets to Arnaldi. Safiullin overcoming Offner in straight sets. And Watanuki, which seems a pretty wild match there with a couple of tie breaks involved, overcoming Kotov. And Gojo is through, and Hanfman, which is probably maybe the best known player amongst all of those players I've just mentioned. He has also gone through to the first round proper. Any of those matches or any of those players you'd like to touch on?
Yeah, I guess Hanfman, I think, could be one of the most dangerous qualifiers. Actually, I'm not yet too familiar with where they are in the draw, so we're going to get to that later, as you said. But if he's in a good spot, I would be willing to pick him, to reach the second or third round. Very tough qualifying draw, I think, for him, Martere and Cazot. But he's also one of these classic fast clay enjoyers. He has 2 ATP Tour finals, both at altitude, Gstaad and Kitzbühel. And definitely loves playing in anything, but basically anytime the clay is just a little quicker. So not too surprised with the fact that he qualified, and also just think that, just not taking draw into consideration, he's probably maybe even the most dangerous qualifier, given the fact that we don't have Fils anymore, maybe along with like Struff when he's playing well. I'm also, personally, just like I said, that I was happy that Shevchenko qualified. I personally am very happy that Watanuki qualified. Of course, at the Australian Open, he was also a big talking point when he beat Rinderknecht after qualifying and then played Korda. Not really a clay player, definitely not. But if he's going to do well on clay, it's probably going to be Madrid, just like for many of these players who just try to play tennis in a very non-clay way, just trying to take everything so early, and just a phenomenal shot maker when it's working. And I do wish that he can eventually get like a huge main tour win, like he was close to at what was it, Indianapolis or Miami when he played Tiafoe. I cannot remember. I think it must have been Miami because, well, the courts were quick, so it must have been Miami. And he certainly has just some insane natural ability to to play tennis like no one else basically is able to afford to play. Going for every single ball, trying to take everything on the ice, and somehow it's working for him, and I think that's super impressive, even though probably Madrid is not going to be his breakout event. I don't think so. And yeah, Goyo, I think, also is a very natural qualifier with his serve and the way it gets boosted in Madrid. A little bit of a shame that Piros wasn't able to maintain his good form, but he just played so much tennis in recent weeks, and especially the last two, going back to back in challengers. Jane is also asking, Damien, how would you describe Shevchenko's style of play? I've had some discussions with friends about this. Someone said that he's like a power grinder. I don't know if that actually makes sense. He's the first thing that I saw from him when I watched him live was like the crazy intensity he played with of the baseline, and I think that was also very similar to Thiem. When I watched him, I didn't yet know that he was a Bresnik protege. Now when you know it makes sense, I suppose. I would say the backhand is the more solid shot, but the forehand has definitely more explosive potential, and he's not easy to categorize in terms of like whether he's a defender or an attacker. I think he definitely likes to play on the attack, but he's completely fine, just grinding. But even when he grinds, he does it with this insane intensity, crazy power as well, and a very flat, very heavy first serve too. So I think that sort of power grinder is a pretty decent power grinder. Baseliner was a pretty decent line. Kind of hard to categorize, but definitely has a very well balanced game in that he can both attack and defend to a great extent, and Yeah, but the main thing for me when I watched him was definitely the solid backhand, just how clean that shot was, and also the intensity of the ground. But later on, I also found out that the forehand can be an absolute bomb as well when he's feeling it. So so far he has mostly achieved good stuff on clay before this year, but as you said earlier, Jane, I think in the chat, Phoenix final, he also won Tenerife, so clearly trying to branch out a little bit. And I guess, whatever you can say about Ginter Bresnik and like the work he did with team, because there were moments when everyone was criticizing the Austrian legendary coach and actually saying that maybe he's also the reason why team couldn't really win a big title for a while, why he couldn't translate his clay game to other surfaces as well. But the guy, certainly Bresnik, I mean, can craft successful players, and Shevchenko has been working with him since 2000, like since he was 12, I think. So it's been a while, and or maybe since he was 10, something along these lines. And you can totally see that he just has a very, very well balanced game. Everything basically is there. I don't know if there's some crazy potential. It's frankly very hard to tell with him. Like I wouldn't be shocked if at some point he was a seed at slams, but at the same time I also wouldn't really wager anything on him getting there. But I think he should be a main tour player for a long while. And yeah, he's very definitely smartly led.
Yeah, a couple of things I would say is, first of all, you were talking about categories and categorizing things. I didn't even know he was top 100. Is that a recent breakthrough?
Yeah, a couple of weeks back he won actually the challenger in Madrid over Kachin in the final, but he made it by winning the semis against Passaro from a set down. At the time when he won his semi, he actually wasn't in yet, but it wasn't mathematically secured. But when he was stepping out onto the court in the final, he already knew that he was gonna break the top 100 regardless of the results. So yeah, it was just I don't know, 2 weeks back, something like that.
Another couple of things as well I'm going to add, or one of them is responding to you, is the coaching thing. I think that incredible fans of players, if you like, as in like not obsessive, it would be too much, but certainly just crazy fans for certain players. I think that they do quickly turn on the coach more than they do the player, maybe in a football-esque sort of way, in that in football all the time that we're very quick to blame the coach before the players. It doesn't take long for it to turn on the player, but with football it's a bit different because you've got badge and color and identity, whereas with players you're sort of so invested in the player that you can't turn on the player. You can't be a Rafa or Novak fan going, that's it, I'm done with Rafa. I'm so angry at his performance at the Australian Open over the last 15 years or whatever. That therefore it's just going to be these Twitterati on the coach. And I think it's just we have no idea really what's going on with football. I think we can see things and we can see patterns of play and we can compare it. And with tennis, all we can say is that, well, his backhand has been lame for 10 years now. Now, is that the coach? If he's had 3 different coaches, that would probably suggest no. If he's had one coach, maybe, but it's far more difficult, I would suggest. And I'm not a part of the coaching community, but regarding Dominic Thiem, well, of course, he's on the lookout for a new coach as well, as far as I'm aware. I don't think he's appointed a new one yet, but he obviously had a very successful partnership recently as well. So I just think that most of it is people. We have no idea. We can see something. We can see Rafa with Carlos to some extent having an immediate effect. We see it with Ljubicic, definitely with Federer, and just listening to, without getting carried away with bravado, because I think sometimes when you listen to coaches as well, bravado is a big thing in all sports, but we see it in tennis, naming no names, but maybe 1 or 2 coaches in the south of France that like to big up their influence, whereas others let things like the results do the talking. And I think with Ljubicic, he was very careful with interviews. He did very few during the years he was coaching Federer, and even since his retirement, he's done a couple, and they've been great, by the way. I know one was on Punto de Break, which I touched upon earlier, and there was another one on the tennis podcast. Really interesting, especially talking about, you know, the 6 months that Federer took away from the tour at the end of 2016, or 5 months or whatever it was. But anyway, I digress. Back to the qualifiers.
No, one more thing I only wanted to say. I very much agree that like in tennis, we can't really know the impact of coaching in 95% of the cases. Why in this particular Shevchenko team, I sort of make the comparison a lot. One, besides that intensity of the ground, just playing everything at, you know, full speed. Never really choosing to just, I don't know, decelerate on a ball or something. The other thing is that I think that the issue that everyone sort of was blaming on Bresnik when Team was working with him was that Team couldn't really make his long strokes more compact. And even when he was playing indoors, he was like 5 meters behind the baseline and just trying to, you know, produce the whole motion. He was absolutely awful at passing shots. Again, for that same reason, because when someone was at the net, he was still trying, you know, there was not an option for Team. There wasn't an option to, I don't know, just try to change something in the swing, you know, in these cat and mouse sort of play. And he was still trying to produce the same stroke. Even when he got a short ball, he was still trying to do the same. And the reason why I also see a lot of direct comparisons between Shevchenko and Team and how they're coached, even though we have very little info on that, is that Shevchenko had a very similar issue. Like, literally, it didn't really matter whether Shevchenko was 5 meters behind the baseline or, I don't know, it was a very short ball, a sitter at the net. He was still producing the stroke in exactly the same way, regardless of whatever was happening. So in this particular case, I think we can definitely see a few... just a few common points. And also, I will mention that Shevchenko is the holder of a very prestigious record. He is actually one of 2 players who have appeared on my Challenger pod the most times, at 3, along with Zdenek Kolarz. So I'm pretty sure he's proud of that.
I will come back to your pod in a second, and also the players that have been on it. But I've just put on the screen a cat and a mouse. I spent about a minute looking for a picture of the cat and a mouse playing with each other. Jane, yes, I am having fun there. Just because you said something, and it was perfectly said in the perfect moment. The context was amazing. But I then spent the next minute looking for a cat and a mouse playing. And so I decided to put them on the screen. I can't even remember what exactly it was specifically you were talking about, but I remember the context was perfect. But anyway, I'll put that up on the screen for a little bit of fun. Yes, I have, Jane. Listen, back to your pod. You've had people on there 3 times. Have you had Liam Brody once?
Once, yeah. I just talked to him once. Like when I say I have them on, it's mostly like putting an interview inside the pod, right? But yeah. I talked to Brody once in Vilnius, in February, yeah.
Oh yeah, when he won the title. Or went on to win the title.
I talked to him after the semi. And he was actually one of the, I guess only the second player live who just knew me instantly.
Because I've seen you interact as well. In fact, I think he responded to you by saying we need more people into challenges like David.
There was something like that, yes. That was actually quite a long while before Vilnius, but when I was in Vilnius, he liked a few tweets, so I kind of knew that he might recognize me when I come up to him, yeah.
And I actually wanted to mention something about Liam Brody, because maybe some people are tuning in going, what about Liam Brody regarding Madrid qualifiers? Where is he? What happened? He got a wrist injury about 3 weeks ago, before the clay season started. It would have been his last challenge. Did he make a final of a challenger about 3 weeks ago?
Brody, when he had that injury.
Exactly.
No, was it a wrist? Yeah, I think it was a wrist, right?
Yeah, I think it's a wrist.
Yeah, that was to Rodionov in Biel or Lugano, one of the Swiss ones. I think it's Biel, right? Biel, because Lugano, Virtanen won Lugano, and then Rodionov won Biel over Brody, yeah.
I'm not sure if he retired or he just
he retired 3-6, and I think he retired in the first game of the second set. But even in the last few games of the opener, you could see that he was he was clutching his wrist a bit. He had an MTO as well between the sets, but also there were moments when he was only slicing his forehand. So you could see that something is terribly wrong.
Yeah, terribly wrong. And the thing with the wrist is, and I'll I'll elaborate a bit more on Liam's situation in a second. The thing with the wrist is it is sort of, it can be recurring, it can be recurrent. I know. So regarding Liam's situation, which will also elaborate on what the point I want to say anyways, he appeared to pick up that injury in that challenger final in Biel about a month ago. I saw him, funny enough, in some Twitter videos that were posted where he was just playing right-handed, just for a laugh, if you like, because basically he and David Samuel had booked a week in Marbella, I think, to prepare for a tournament. I don't remember which one, but probably Banja Luka, I think. Probably, anyway. It was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they still went to because they ended up going to Banja Luka, but I'm probably getting ahead of it. I'm probably getting my weeks muddled up. Maybe they were preparing for another tournament.
I think there was like a challenger he wanted to play before Banja Luka, right? But did he eventually play that? I'm not actually
He didn't.
sure.
I don't think he did. Check. Yeah. But I don't think he did because
he didn't. Yeah.
Right. But then it was going to be like full steam ahead for Banja Luka. But then I think the injury has sort of recurred to the extent whereby he pulled out of the Madrid qualifiers because he was in the qualifying for Madrid. I was very much looking forward to meeting him in person for the first time. I was going to say not, but I saw him in Germany a few weeks ago, or a few months ago. But I actually didn't meet him really. But anyway, yes. So unfortunately, that has recurred. I have no idea as we speak what his prognosis is in terms of returning. I just know that he'll be desperate to be healthy 100% for the grass court season. I know his first ever Grand Slam, I think it was on clay at the French Open. So his sort of breakout Grand Slam performance was there. But I would be a little bit concerned. I don't know much more, but the thing is with the wrist as well is there's been a situation where it's occurred. Oh dear, okay, it's the wrist. Okay, pretty important. Oh, okay, he's going to be back in a couple of weeks. But then there's been a regression as well. So I would just be a little bit concerned about rushing back anytime too soon. I know David Samuel, we spoke about a week ago, we texted about a week ago, and I would love to talk to him very soon about Liam's situation and to see where we are regarding the remainder of the clay court season. But we'll see. I'm not putting too much of a damper on it. Honestly, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I just know that wrist injuries and if it recurred, so that's an issue.
Yes.
So, Brody segment tip. I think now is probably the time to get to the main draws. Let's go switch back to the WTA regarding the qualifiers. By the way, we're not doing a main draw thing. For those of you tuning in thinking, oh my goodness, we've already been going over an hour. We've got another 3 hours to go. Don't worry, we're not doing the whole thing from the first. We should go back to we've got the juniors as well to come yet. And anyway, no, don't worry. We're just going to have a quick look at the qualifiers on the women's side. I've got a poll going on YouTube right now, and I'll come to that in a second because actually it's regarding the ATP players. Who you think is going to go the furthest? I must admit, I put the poll on YouTube primarily with an idea of how well are these qualifiers doing, but maybe there's some very smart people out there that have also looked at the draw regarding that poll, but I've done that for the ATP players only. However, right now I'm going to switch back to WTA and just tell you what I have seen with my own eyes, and that is that Bouchard looked really, really good. Now, it could all end in tears in the first round. It could, who knows where Bouchard's run can go. But of the qualifiers that we've spoken about, and the qualifiers, I think all of them that have made it through, she's the standout for me. I know she's 285, I think, in the world right now. But the performance she put in yesterday, which I saw in the flesh, and the performance that she clearly did today in losing just 5 games and beating Mandlik, she's the WTA qualifier that is playing the best. That doesn't mean it will work out that way, and my predictions don't always come true. Is there any WTA player in terms of the draw, especially? I guess Vondrousova is the one that we highlighted. I guess she's the obvious pick to go furthest, right?
Yeah, I think they're the main two. Vondrousova probably with a slightly better chance than Bouchard, but if Bouchard wins the first 2 rounds, no one is going to be surprised. If she beats Azarenka or Schmidlova or Parks, also nothing special, right? I think we would all like to see Pegula Bouchard, for example, in the fourth round, and the same goes for Vondroušová for her to play Sabalenka. I think they were on collision course at the Australian Open in the quarters, and that's where a lot of people had Vondroušová losing. As I said earlier, she lost to Fruhvirtova in the third round, which was a bit of a surprise. But just looking at the other qualifiers, I would say that there are, of course, plenty of them who can win a round. Like, of course, there are. But some of them are in a good spot. Like, for example, Parisas Diaz, she's playing Blinkova and then Kudermetova. Like, I can see her in the third round only because Kudermetova is kind of weak. But can she actually? Is she as dangerous as Vondroušová or Bouchard? No, I just think that that's a good opportunity for her in the draw. But Vondroušová and Bouchard definitely seem like the ones who could actually win 2 or 3 matches here, and maybe even more if they keep playing like this. I mean, Vondroušová, we more or less know she will, right? Bouchard, we are still kind of uncertain because, well, she just hasn't played like that in 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a box of tricks really regarding her. But all I'll say is this: if she repeats the form that I saw yesterday and presumably today, then she's got a great chance. Vondroušová, I see 2 or 3 players in this little mini section for her. Linette, Kostyuk, Osario, maybe. I mean, she sometimes struggles a bit in terms of the power that she may or may not have.
I mean, the big thing is whether Vondroušová would be able to do anything to Sabalenka, right? And the answer is probably not really in Madrid, at least. So yeah, I don't really think she's gonna go further than the fourth round. But
yeah, in fact, of course, Osario will be in the little third round section.
Yeah, and the same for Kostyuk.
Yeah.
I guess Sabalenka Kirstea. Let's first see if Sabalenka can even beat Kirstea, right? She lost to her in what was it, Miami?
Miami. Hard court. But then I do remember 1 or 2 tiny fitness issues after that match. Oh, listen, I am going to just digress for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
The Sabalenka, you did a live stream on it. The Sabalenka Iga Swiatek final on Sunday. And I'm going to digress, and it really is a minor moment. The smash from Sabalenka at Iga Swiatek, and what was Iga doing anyway? Charging at that.
Weird reaction for sure, but just trying to sort of
distract,
scare.
But isn't that sort of against the rules?
If the umpire doesn't think it's a hindrance, I think in this case probably it wasn't.
But she has got form.
Yeah, like with all these priors that she had, it probably was. To me, like with these priors, like when she was tapping, just making some random steps, right?
There was a thing exactly. Where she did
waving
like
hands.
That.
Yeah, she did it a lot of times last year. Like she did it like she's done like 5 times, and in these cases, I actually thought it warranted a hindrance call, and all the people who were. All the people who are enraged about this, I think they should actually be enraged towards the umpires who weren't calling it. But the rules are a little loose when it comes to hindrance, and that's really all to say. All there is to say. I think.
That's good. I wanted it to be to minor because obviously we're here to talk about qualifiers, but I do think that there is a couple of other things, tiny things as well. I don't think she sort of. It's not a thought out. It's not a premeditated thing, and I do because I think she immediately regret, particularly when it was shown to her as clearly as it was last year. I'm not sure if it was Cincinnati maybe last August time when it got highlighted in particular. But I do think that it's sort of. And she said, "I'm going to try and cut it out," and I haven't really seen anything until.
Other than this, we haven't seen it, right? So. I think it's fair to say
it's still something. But then I don't know whether that influenced
Players have
Sabalenka-
sometimes, like other players have done this too, like the hand waving. No, not really. I mean, only really only one really I can think of is Tommy Haas against Federer, but there it was all for laughs because they were such good friends and etc. And like the score in the match was so, like the match was already done more or less.
It wasn't the French Open when it was.
No, it's Wimbledon. Wimbledon
Oh, okay.
2009.
Okay.
Wimbledon 2009. So actually, the slam right after, but that match was far less competitive. But something like this, where when the player is trying to smash and you just sort of, I don't know, do whatever, you maybe run towards the net a bit. Ivo Karlovic did it a few times, for example. We talked about him, and like no one is ever really raising this as a bit of a, as a topic, as for debate. And I think even this one right here in Madrid, it hasn't been, Madrid, in Stuttgart, it hasn't been criticized at all, right? So
I think I'm the first to bring it up, and but the reason is because the criticism, if there has been any, has been on Sabalenka, and I'm thinking Sabalenka's doing what she can to win the point. I get it that if she's obviously going to win the point and then she's aiming it at Iga, okay, yeah, but actually she just wants to win the point. If Iga's then going to jump in the way, so actually there's been a tiny amount of criticism toward Arena. So I'm probably just saying, I think that if she's going to go for the smash and then for some random reason Iga's decided to run into that smash, well, then there's been an action there that Iga has taken, and there we go.
Yeah, Ghosty is asking why wasn't Sabre a hindrance issue, and yeah, like if we're saying that someone sprinting to the net is a hindrance, then we could even say that this was a hindrance. Yeah, it's not, and that's why no one is enraged by Świątek, doing this to Sabalenka in Stuttgart. Whereas I think the critique over the hand waving thing was absolutely justified. Although the umpires should have stopped it. Like if she was going to lose the point every time she did that, she would have learned not to do it very quickly, I think.
Indeed. Okay, let's get to the ATP qualifiers. I need to do that on my screen right now. So we go main draw, and then we click something else. Oh, ATP, that probably helps. And yeah, I've highlighted. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll share the YouTube poll on the screen. I think let's just do a little refresh on this and see where we are at with this. I've got Karatsev, Paire, and Cecchinato on the poll alert. I've got other as well, but actually all three of those have gained all the votes that we've got. And Karatsev has the most at 45%. Let's put that up on the screen as well so others can see it. Yeah, Karatsev has won that one quite handsomely over Paire and Cecchinato. At least in terms of magnitude or pedigree, I guess that makes sense. Cecchinato would probably have more of a shout than Benoit Paire, in my opinion. But then maybe the draw also has an influence over that. So let's bring up the ATP draw there. Hopefully now we've got that on the screen. And yeah, what are you thinking in terms of the qualifiers and the draw?
Do we just I don't know, how do you want to do this? Just mention a few that have a good opportunity.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So Goyo drew Monteiro, just going from the top, and I think that's a very nice chance for him. I don't think he would be able to beat Khachanov. Like, this definitely strikes me as a tournament of like the classic Khachanov tournament, when he wins a few rounds, then loses to like the first relevant player he faces. Let's say that. But Goyo,
I would argue he's got to Grand Slam semi-finals like that.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I mean, yeah. And just with Monteiro's pretty awful form and the quicker clay conditions in Madrid, I feel like Goyo can serve his way to another win here, probably. But he's probably a little bit too basic to trouble Khachanov. Really, we have that Paire Arnaldi round one match that we talked about. Neither, I don't think really either of them can beat Ruud. Arnaldi is probably like the slight favorite, but don't really think either can trouble him. We mentioned Hanfmann, and I think he has a very, very nice draw. Musetti could be vulnerable in Madrid, I think. And Musetti is like the only threat in this section for him, provided Varillas isn't one, but he crushed Varillas last year in Rio de Janeiro. And also, Carreño Busta, of course, has been out for such a long while. And Huntman, to me, if like, he could actually have a shot at Musetti, whom I still don't consider to be like a favorite that's gonna make a deep run in every single event. He's just far too inconsistent in terms of executing his game plan, I would say, for me to like perceive him that way. We mentioned earlier that Struff plays Sonego. If he's able to, produce a much higher level than he did yesterday, well, today, then he could play Shelton in the second round, which would give him a brilliant chance to make the third round. So, if he beats Sonego, he probably beats Shelton as well, right? Like, I think he totally should. The main, I think here there are a couple of players in the 7th and 8th sections that just got it very nice. We're pretty lucky with the players that they drew. Shevchenko, for example, plays Wolf. I checked that a couple of days ago, and I think this is only Wolf's second match on European clay. The only one he played ever was Roland Garros qualifying one year when he lost to Roberto Marcora. Otherwise, all his clay matches were on the green stuff in the States, or of course Houston, which is red theoretically, but only in terms of the color. It's still hard true, so much different. Vavasori Mare, I have no clue what's going to happen in that match, but with Mare just having an absolute horror show against the Minor in Monte Carlo, and also in the past few years not playing on clay basically anything. You've got no clue really what's going to happen, because Vavasori also has such a unique style. His serve and volleys
Great
like
to see
90% of
Andy
the
Murray
point.
qualifying for this tournament as well.
Great
to see Andy Murray qualifying again.
Well, qualifying, yeah.
I'm being I don't know. I'm being
antagonistic. But he didn't need a wild card, so
no. Okay, yeah.
So enough. Yeah, but he actually won 2 matches in Madrid last year. If you remember, he defeated someone pretty good, actually. I cannot remember who it was, and then withdrew before playing Djokovic. So last year he was actually undefeated on clay.
Yeah,
which is wild. And 2 other guys, I think, who just were very lucky with the round on draws are Rodionov, who's gonna play Zhang, and Zhiren Zhang has just been in awful form all year. And if Rodionov wins, he could play Shapovalov, and he famously beat him in Vienna 2020. So maybe there's something there. And also Watanuki, because he's playing Mute, and we haven't seen Mute since the Austrian Open. So God knows who. I know after the surgery, God knows in what sort of form he's going to be. So potentially there's a chance for Watanuki to play Nori, which on clay, I don't know if I see it, but if this sort of an upset was possible anywhere, then on the Madrid clay, not on, I don't know, Rome or Monte Carlo, right? And you also have these Cecchinato and Karatsev guys, which you mentioned, both with a totally winnable round 1 matchup, but also neither is like really, a strong favorite, right?
I saw Cecchinato's draw.
He's playing Fucsovics and then the Minor essentially.
Yeah, where I'm just trying to find him now. But
bottom, almost the very bottom, the very bottom, and he's actually right next to Karatsev.
Okay, I saw it and I just thought,
here.
There we are. Yeah, I thought, okay, so Fucsovics followed by de Minaur. I think I can understand his support in the poll that I posted on YouTube, but I think that draw makes it a bit trickier for him. I mean, that would be very impressive if he gets to round 3, in my opinion. Karatsev Lesloger, I would say, is 60-40 maybe in Karatsev's favor, but it's maybe 50-50.
Yeah, I would struggle to really give an edge to anyone, but that's mostly because we never really have a clue what sort of Karatsev we'll see, right? So yeah, the bookies are actually having Jere as a bit of a favorite from what I can see. And Fucsovics is a very similar.
I think it wasn't for the fact that he's just won 2 qualifying matches, including one against Struff.
Then Jere would have been a much bigger favorite.
Yeah, in my mind too. There was another thing that I wanted to say in kind of response to either something you said or it was just something about Musetti. Maybe I just thought that you were being a bit harsh on him.
That's not really a level thing. That's more of a playstyle thing. Like, I don't the guy just has so many different ways to win points, just such a wide skill set that it actually often leads to his demise, I think. It's
Okay.
just tough to play tennis like that. What does he really do on the court? Like so many different things. I guess like his most usual pattern is grinding a bit and then finding that backhand down the line. That's not really a ultra consistent style, right? It's just so much easier to play tennis when you have the big serve and the big forehand, and you're just gonna overwhelm the other guy. And for that sort of reason, it's always just hard for me to think of Musetti as someone who, okay, he's reaching the quarters for sure. So I think, especially on these faster clay courts in Madrid, he could be vulnerable to a Hanfmann or to a Varillas. Well, Varillas is maybe not in great form, but he has already beaten Musetti this year. And Hanfmann, well, he is in better, definitely in better disposition right now than Varillas. And I wouldn't be really so sure that Musetti was going to progress. Of course, we still haven't really seen Musetti. Well, we've seen Musetti quite a lot in Madrid, two editions, 2021. I don't know if we counted still, but at least last year he made the third round. But at the same time, he had a very tough match against Morocanias in the qualifying. So I don't know. I just don't think he's one of the seeds that is just, he has to get to the quarters. He's not the kind of guy where I would put him in that sort of category, even if he's better than some other players than that I would easily put into these, fourth rounds, third rounds. That's just all I wanted to say. And I don't really think that's it's not a compliment, definitely not. But I'm not sure it's not harsh. I think what I said about Kachanov was a bit harsher. And also Ghosty, like 20 minutes ago, was asking like, watch Damian say something mean about Linette, watch. So I'm going to say this. If Vondrousova and Linette play in the second round, I don't think she has a chance.
Oh, there we go. And you throw the pen away as well at that point. You don't need the pen anyway for any more notes. It's all on Vondrousova. Make sure she does that. Catching off, but it's actually, maybe my response was even colder, really, but maybe that went under the radar. I mean, yeah, he's got to Grand Slams. I mean, Australia was a kind of a win for him against who pulled out injured, who we've not seen since Korda. Yeah, and Korda was just looking really
good win over TFO, right? I mean, I wanted to say I remember watching that match in Bonn, but I remember watching all of these matches in Bonn. But
those matches were all happening at the same time.
That was the crazy 15 minutes, right? When Hurkacz Shapovalov was finishing, Tiafoe Kachanov, and something else. I can't remember.
And maybe Medvedev Korda as well. Yeah, maybe. And there were sort of three different kind of craziness.
Three different, but all in like very, all in just some tight end of sets, very electrifying. And
by the way, Tiafoe had, I think, 5 set points.
That was the last tiebreak. Yeah. I just checked some of the odds for these qualifier matches, and for example, Wolf and Shevchenko and Vavasori and Murray are just dead even for the bookies, which I guess makes sense. Perhaps more in Vavasori Murray. They just don't trust Shevchenko anyway, even if it's Wolf's second career European clay match. Which
so Murray's
is kind of funny to me.
Well, maybe his wins last year would suggest otherwise.
Yeah, by his wins last year, I kind of want to say he's the favorite. But when you think about how he played against the Minor, But like similarly with some other guys, if this version of Murray is gonna do something on clay, Madrid is probably the best choice. So maybe for that reason I would make him a small favorite. Of course, back in the day, 2015-16, Murray was actually like a top 3 clay player, but that was quite a long while ago. But he won Madrid, right? 2015, I think, and was in the final 2016. So it was always a very successful event for him, and for it's understandable. It's the clay event, at least of the big titles, that most resembles hard courts.
I want to bring some breaking news. Before I do so, Shelton, and don't let me forget about the breaking news, because I probably will. That's how unimportant. I'm giving it a bit of away. The breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, It's not that big. It's not Carlos.
Now you
Alcaraz
need to talk
going
about
out.
Shelton, that 50% win rate, right? That you were.
So, yes, that's exactly
okay.
what it. How did you know? Or is it? It's just. I don't know. Was it you or anyway? I've put it out there, and about 5 people have mentioned it, but that's all. Maybe even less than 5. Maybe 2. I when he lost to Dominic Thiem in Estoril, you certainly were like, oh, it's Ben Shelton on clay, and I'm like, hey, for the first 2 games, he was insane, and he'd already won a match as well in Estoril, and so I think I said on Twitter, or I've certainly mentioned it a few times, saying Ben Shelton will have a win-loss positive record during the clay court season. And at the moment, I think it's 2. It's like 2-2 or 3-3 or something like that.
It's 2-3. It's 2-3. It's 2-3.
Okay.
So it's gonna be hard, especially as when he's playing Madrid and Rome. Well, at least in Madrid, he's
serve.
Yeah, but the fact is that in Madrid he's a seed, right? And that doesn't actually help him.
No, because he can't. Not for the. No, it helps him, but doesn't help me.
It helps him, but doesn't help your cause. I think in Rome he's not going to be a seed because, of course, like Djokovic, Nadal, and there's just not going to be that many withdrawals. He's actually 4 out right now, so he could be a seed, but potentially won't be a seed for Rome. So maybe that could help him, but. Your chances aren't looking that great right now, but I don't think it's going to be.
I'm encouraged.
It's not going to be a 0-5, right?
I'm encouraged because it's not just 2 and 3; it's the performances as well are getting better. So
the match against Ruud was. I mean, the second set at least was quite good, and I don't think I was ever laughing at this prediction of yours, which I can't remember where I heard, but. You probably mentioned it maybe in the chat when I was doing some commentary.
I probably mentioned the chat. I probably mentioned it 72 times, hoping that eventually it would land on your doorstep.
Frankly, now I think about it anytime I see, I don't know, Shelton in a draw on clay or something like that.
That's
I'm
what
like, he's 2 and 3. So John's prediction is not really going that well. But I don't think I was ever laughing off or something like that. I just said something along the lines of, it doesn't really matter. Like he's playing on clay, he's learning. Even if he goes, I don't know, 1 and 5, it doesn't matter. He's here to learn, not to win. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe he can.
What prompted me was the fact that I was suggesting, I think at the time, that's a really good win for Dominic Thiem, 6-2, 6-2, I think it was, over Ben Shelton, and you were like, yeah, wow, come on.
It's the classic Dominic Thiem of 2022. Well, 2023. I think he beats someone. We are like, that's a good win. That's a good win.
But he had 2 wins in a row in Estoril.
He's gonna be back. And
he had 2 wins in a row in Estoril.
Yeah, I know. And but he also said that he was feeling different, right, in practice.
Dominic, by the way, was very sort of when it was sort of said, 2 wins in a row. He sort of said it, and this was by the way the last week he had with his coach as well. They split, I think, at the end of the tournament. But he sort of said, in a way of pretty, I think it was quite clear. It was like, yeah, 2 wins in a row is good. He didn't say this, but I'm going to elaborate, if you will. Yeah, but I'm a US Open winner. I'm a French Open and Australian Open finalist. 2 wins in a row is not something to be doing cartwheels over. Now, they are my words, not Dominic's, but trust me, that was the message he was conveying.
Yeah, and in that sense, definitely, I agree with him. He also said something about his forehand feeling much better in practice.
Yeah, he did say that. That was also in the mix of all this.
And that's why I call him a liar.
Yeah, well, therefore, I think that's probably where we slightly disagree, and only slightly, because he said that, and I think that got you to make a comment, and I think I even wrote an article, one of about 12 articles on the Talking Tennis website, which I do hope you're watching on the laptop, because occasionally there are glitches on the phone. But we'll get to that when we've got more manpower and maybe even a few more euros, which, by the way, brings me to my point of make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and also feel free to send in a super chat for Damien and I's ramblings for an hour and a half on a Tuesday night as it is here. But there's one other thing I want to get to, which is the breaking news, which is this. And this is how unimportant this breaking news is. I did it on Instagram earlier to mention this particular show, and Jan-Lennard Struff and Bouchard have both seen the post. They haven't liked it. They haven't commented. They haven't joined us on YouTube, but they have at least, because Damien on Instagram, by the wonders of technology, we are in a position where we can see who has seen the post. And both Jan-Lennard Struff and Bouchard have seen a post on Instagram. I'm still learning my way around Instagram. That's not me trying to be cool by saying, because a lot of people do this to be cool. It's like, oh, I don't have Facebook, or I don't do.
I do that to be cool. I say I'm just not used to social media. I suck at it.
On
Twitter,
it's
true.
You know your way around Twitter, Damien.
Well, Twitter I'm fine, but that's like 2000s social media. Like I can write things, like that's fine. But yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and etc. I actually do suck, but I also say it to be cool. Yeah, so you're very right.
I have an Instagram to the regional manager person who certainly helps me with those sort of things and tagging people and all that other stuff. I'm like you as well. Ghosty here saying, by the way, what is social media? But I'm like you. I must say with Twitter, it took me a couple of years to sort of get my head around it. But I think the human race needed a couple of years to get their heads around it, and then a couple more years to go nuts as well.
I saw a meme like that when someone was just talking about the fact that people usually make a Twitter account and then forget about it because it's too complicated, and then come back after 5 years. And that's exactly what happened to me. Like when you enter my profile, it says that I joined in 2015 or something like that. I literally made the account. It was so complicated, I just didn't even bother, and then returned to it in 2019. And Ghost, actually, you're not gonna fool us, because a couple of days ago, when I was doing the ATP Weekly with Vansh, you mentioned that feud he had with Craig Gabriel. So you're not gonna fool us. We know you are active on social media.
He has a Twitter account, Ghosty?
I don't know. Maybe he was just reading Twitter without an account. I don't know.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, there was one occasion when someone suggested he might be the super fan of Djokovic, whose name was
Pavi G.
Pavi G. And he knows who Pavi G is. There's only one way you should legitimately know who Pavi G is, and that's by having a Twitter account.
That's true. Last time he said that he saw. Last time he said that he saw me commenting on that under that feud of Vansh with the journalist, and like that he loved the bro energy, and clearly he is reading Twitter, at least in some capacity.
Which Vansh? Who was Vansh talking
to? That was that Craig Gabriel or whatever, that guy who told him like, I'm accredited to every single event. You only were in San Diego, and like, don't remember that? No. Maybe it's better that you haven't even seen it.
I think I did. It was very unbecoming. If you know that expression or word, even. I did. And I hope.
He just tried to show like that he's privileged because he's he's living off this, and at the same time just made a complete fool out of himself. But I already knew that guy, that and like. There's just no point talking about him even, frankly.
No, indeed. Anyway, that brings our qualifying chat, as it turned out, to a close after 1 hour and 42 minutes. I'm sure many people have probably fallen asleep already with their laptop still on. And thank you anyway, whether you've fallen asleep or staying awake. I know that Ghosty and Jane have been very active throughout. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. You'll get one more reminder of that. Is there anything else one more thing on Twitter, kind of like you, I joined it because of a competition. There was a competition in the British newspaper, The Guardian, not to join Twitter. It's not like, can you join Twitter and work it out? That's the competition. No. It was to be a fan journalist or fan Twitterer or something to do with, it was the 2010 World Cup. Anyway, so I joined, and you needed a Twitter account to join. I think I was living in Switzerland at the time, and it was to give a fan's perspective from Switzerland for The Guardian, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, okay, that's great. I'm living in Switzerland, but you need to have a Twitter account. Okay, fine. I'll create one. I'd sort of reluctantly done so because for me, it was just people showing off. It was like, an extension of Facebook where you would just like post a picture of yourself in front of the Eiffel Tower and say how amazing it was. But it seemed to be even worse than Facebook in that it was just about images, and of course we know about Instagram to come. But I was like, okay, so but then I did sort of get involved during a couple of things. There was a big tabloid sensation in the UK regarding phone hacking, which, by the way, is still going on to this day in terms of investigation. I think I saw it on a front page of a British newspaper today. And there was a Wayne Rooney saga as to whether he would leave Man United or not. And those two things got me into Twitter. And so much so that when Amy Winehouse passed away, I learned it first through Twitter, which would have been about 2011, I would say. And then it was like, okay, so this is like for news as well, and breaking news, and you can follow stories, and you can even tweet about things. And, oh, that's quite funny. And comedians that you could follow, and actually they would be interesting. This was probably in a more innocent phase of Twitter before there were elections and
Elon Musk came along.
oh gosh, well, yes, Elon Musk is where we are now. But anyway, I'll leave you guys off there. Make sure, by the way, you hit the like button and subscribe. Maybe my ability to say subscribe gets worse as this glass of wine goes down. I apologize that we're not ending this podcast on the topic of qualifiers. Anything else to add, Damien?
Not really. I'm sadly not drinking any beverages. I'm actually gonna have to go to bed soon because at 6 a.m. more or less our time, Yeon Chung is gonna play his first his first match since Roland Garros 2020, and I would like to watch that against Jordan Thompson in the Seoul Challenger.
Jordan Thompson's off in Seoul. I mean, of course, the big story is Chung, but Jordan Thompson's off in.
Yeah, Chung drew the third seed, so quite unlucky there. He was actually supposed to play today, and I woke up at 7 a.m. to watch it, but it was just completely rained off. So tomorrow I'm waking up at 6 a.m. Yay.
I don't know if Ghost is trying to challenge me to say Barbora Strikova because he knows that I've drank a couple of wines, or he's just saying it for some other reason, but maybe you can let us know for another time. Listen, enjoy that Chung match against Jordan Thompson, and I'm sure we'll be catching up with each other again very soon, Damien. And on that note, we will say goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.